Hi, it's Laura at Marine 18 Tarot and Books. Thanks for stopping by my channel today. Welcome or welcome back. I'm here with my friend Sarah, whom many or all of you may know from Waterchild Tarot. And we are hanging out in Montreal this weekend, and we thought that we would share what might become a tag. If it's a tag, it's in the title. If it's not a tag, it's not in the title. Chat around some tarot questions.
Yeah, so we just thought we might like to interview each other and sort of get to know each other a little bit better.
Yeah. So we came up with a few questions each. Do you want to ask the first question, or do you want to answer the first question first?
I'll ask it.
Okay.
All right, so Laura, what does your tarot or spiritual practice look like?
Those things are different. My spiritual practice looks like being a druid. I'm a member of the AODA. I'm an apprentice in the AODA, so day to day my spiritual practice looks like a kind of shielding ritual, as well as a daily tarot draw, which is not really related to druidry, but we'll get into the relationship between tarot and spirituality later. I'm also, as an apprentice in the AODA, working on a reading list, working on learning some initiation rituals and things like this as well. Druidry has a lot to do with connecting with the natural environment that you live in or live on, and so learning a lot about the kind of plants and animals that I share space with, spending time connecting with them, and yeah, that's druidry very briefly.
Okay. And my spiritual practice consists of reading Dharma. I'm I would say, aspiring Tibetan Buddhist in a Mahayana path at the moment. So reading Dharma books and doing a daily practice that's a Mahayana practice, 4 measurables and shamatha meditation. And I also really like lojong, which is mind training. And so looking at exchanging what you have with what other people have. It's very sort of leveling kind of practice. So yeah, it's been really good.
Does your practice involve like daily meditation, weekly meditation?
Yeah, every day.
Specific meditation.
Every day we're encouraged to extend time. So you start out with, if you can do 5 minutes, that's great, and then working your way up to longer and longer meditation sessions. So I'm up to about a half an hour right now. I feel pretty comfortable.
Daily?
Yeah.
AOD, we actually have very similar. We're encouraged to meditate daily with no expectation of that looking like a particular amount of time to begin with, but building up is encouraged insofar as it's accessible and possible for you.
And I appreciate it. And it does get easier. A lot of people tell me they start out meditating, they're like, oh, my mind's too frantic, I could never do that. I'm like, well, do it for 30 seconds, do it for a minute. See if you can do it for a minute. And you can just build from there. So yeah, that's what I'm up to. Laura, why do you still practice tarot? We've both been practicing tarot for a number of years. I'm curious why you continue to do it. What does it give you?
Sure. I think for me, practice tarot has looked very different over the time that I have practiced tarot. I don't know that I would have used the language of practice initially necessarily, but early on learning tarot for me looked like fortune telling readings for my friends and family kind of thing. Now it looks like that, as well as informing meditation practice, kind of check-in of kind of energetic dynamics of the day or the week or the month, depending on a kind of general reading time frame. It looks like a practice that helps to make decisions, to answer questions about, something that I care about. It looks like prompts for self-examination or introspection. So my tarot practice looks really different depending on what I'm doing with tarot. And I would say that why I still practice tarot, or why I practice tarot, is the simple reason that it works for the things that I would use it for. So I still draw cards when I'm faced with a decision because I find that it's helpful in a decision-making process. I still draw cards to explore something that I'm struggling with because I find that that's helpful. I still pull cards for friends who want a reading because I find that that's useful for them, you know, and an enjoyable engagement. So just because it works for what I'm going to it for.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. You know, it is effective, and it helps to reveal aspects of a situation that you hadn't thought of before. I think that's, for me, the biggest benefit. It's not that I can't work through things on my own or that I always need to lean onto it, but sometimes I just want another idea, you know, another perspective or something like that. And I think working with images really helps you break out of your conventional thinking and gives you another perspective. And so that's why I keep turning to it.
You can feel like a prod, what about this?
Right.
You're thinking about this, but what about this other idea?
Yeah, that's very helpful in that way.
That's helpful when it's coming from a human, but it's helpful when it's coming from cards as well, I think.
And I find too that sometimes having, like, I have friends that come to me with a problem and I want to talk to them about it, but talking to them about it through a tarot reading is actually a little bit easier because it's not just my opinion about what they should do, but it's sort of like, here's what the cards say. And so it's a way to deliver maybe difficult messages or advice, or, you know, talk about a tough situation in sort of a layered way, you know, like one step back kind of thing.
So how would you say, question 3, does your tarot practice and your spiritual practice fit in together, or how your tarot practice fits into your spiritual practice, if at all?
I've said a bunch of times that I don't really use tarot and my spiritual practice together, but it's not entirely true. I do see my spiritual practice as separate, but there is a certain amount of divination associated with traditional Tibetan practices. They have their own divination systems. And so for me, it's a way of exploring some of the difficult questions that my Buddhist practice brings up. Like I'll hit a thing in Buddhism that feels very like tender or raw or difficult. And it's like, okay, I've identified a problem or an obstacle that I can work on. And then with tarot, you kind of dive into like, well, why is this, you know, what is exactly the nature of this? Why is that such a sensitive subject to think about? Or, you know, how is this difficult for you? And that can help you unpeel. And again, it's that step removed. It doesn't feel quite so personal because it's just the cards. The cards are telling you something. And that can help you kind of look at something that's a little tricky to work with, or that maybe you're resisting, you know, from an ego point of view. So yeah, it's really helpful in that way. How about you?
I would say like similar in a lot of ways with Druidry, insofar as I've done tarot and other kind of divinatory system readings about my Druid practice, digging into particular aspects of my Druid practice, doing something related to our holidays, for example. I don't think of tarot as a Druid practice. I don't think of tarot as integral to a Druid practice. I don't think it is. I think that the things that work for me that I like about tarot and that I like about Druidry are independent of each other in a lot of ways. And I would, if I didn't know about or didn't engage with one of those two things, I would still be engaging with the other, I think. I don't think either one needs the other, not at all. Lots of Druids are interested in divination of various sorts, and some people who are tarot enthusiasts are also Druids, but they don't need to go together. There's no reason that they need to go together. There's no way. There's also no, in my mind, reason that they naturally go together. Not at all. But I think that both. I think that Druidry requires and kind of demands, for lack of better language, particular kinds of introspection and particular kinds of self-criticality that tarot can support. I also think there are other ways to support that are not tarot, but I think that tarot does lend itself to that. So for me, they can work together. and in practice they do work together, but they don't need to.
Yeah.
And tarot for me is not an inherently spiritual practice. I can use tarot to, make a decision about my job or predict something for a friend that has nothing to do with my spiritual practice at all.
Yeah, same thing, I think. And it's interesting you bring up the introspection part, because the self-reflection is a big cornerstone of Buddhism as well. And so it helps to dive into those questions. But like you said, there's not an inherent need to practice tarot, nor is there an inherent tie between tarot and spirituality. It's like you can use it that way, or you can use it to decide where to go on vacation, or to help a friend figure out whether they, should make this decision or that decision.
Or to, like, gamble.
Yeah, right.
Any number of things.
Yeah, I think it's cool that way. So how do you document your tarot readings?
I don't want to say that I have a fear of not documenting my readings, but I might. I feel like any reading I do, no matter how small, I have to write it down. I think that patterns, can often mean something, and so I like to look at, monthly or yearly, if particular cards have shown up a lot. So I like to write down any reading that I do for myself. Obviously, if I was reading for someone else, I wouldn't necessarily document it in the same way. But I really like to journal out, particularly more introspective or more decision-making related kind of readings for myself. I find writing things out therapeutic, whether that's like with tarot or without, right? Like I have found, since being in therapy from a young age, I have found journaling to be very therapeutic and very helpful in terms of letting things out and releasing things that need to be released. And so tarot just kind of falls into that, I guess. I'm a journaling enthusiast without tarot, but with tarot as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. And I also keep track of readings that I do for friends, just because I want to be able to go back and ask them, 6 months later, how was that reading for you? So I keep two different things. I keep a journal, which if you watch my channel, you may have seen. And I put my tarot readings in there. And then when I have readings for friends, I like to at least write down what deck I used, what cards came up, and then I'll usually take a picture and send it to them so that they can continue to think about the reading that we had together. But also to go back and ask them, a few months later, I like to say, how did that work out? Or like, what decision did you end up making? Or, how did this go for you? Just because I'm curious about our perception of accuracy. It's very interesting to me.
Do you document their responses too? Like if someone says that your reading assisted them to make a decision in a particular way, would you go back and write that down as well?
Yeah, I do. Or like that they were happy with that, or that, it worked out, or it did or didn't make sense, because sometimes you get, sometimes you draw some cards, whether it's for yourself or someone else, and you're kind of like, and I believe that every draw will answer the question, but whether you can understand the answer is a different story. So sometimes you need to like sit with it, or see what, wait a little bit and get some more information.
Well, do you then, when whatever your tarot practice looks like for you, is asking a question always important?
Yes. Yeah, I don't do so well with just nebulous, like, show me the energy of this month kind of things. For me personally, it's not as helpful, as it's too vague. So I do like questions. I mean, broad questions can be okay too, or not even like future predicting, but things like, tell me the qualities of this situation, or something like that. Like, where you're not asking for a specific answer, but you're just like, can you just like give me more detail about what's going on, or can you describe something? Even that kind of thing can be helpful.
It's very different. Like thinking about a monthly, say like a month ahead reading. What are the qualities of the month is a very different question than what do I need to keep in mind this month versus what should I expect this month? What's going to happen this month?
Right. Yep.
What should I avoid this month? Right? Like those are all monthly readings, but they're very different.
They are very different, yeah. And I think the question, of course, matters. So you have to think about what you want to know. What do you really want to know? And I ask my friends that too when I do readings for them. I'm like, what do you want to know?
Or not.
Or not know. If you
Or
don't
not.
want to know the answer to this question, don't ask it. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, yeah. But it's very useful in that way. So yeah, that's how I keep track of things, and I think my friends appreciate it. I always tell them to like print out their cards and put them up where they can see them and refer back to it and keep it in mind. I think it's helpful. So yeah, that's what I do. Well, we would like to know what you think of these questions. If you care to respond to our PR,
You can answer them in the comments too if you don't have a channel or you prefer.
Yep.
Yeah. Thanks for hanging out with us.